My name is Gabrielle Fisher. 6 months ago, my wife Elizabeth went missing at a beach along the Gulf of Mexico. We had gotten married only 6 months earlier, and 3 months after the wedding, I was deployed at sea with the Navy. When I was alerted of her disappearance, I was on a helicopter back to land within 24 hours. Another 8 hours after that, I was in southeastern Texas, chasing all of the leads that the police wouldn't. The peculiar thing about her disappearance is this. She was reported going to the beach at about 7 p.m. on a Monday evening with 4 of her friends. There was an unrelated group of 3 people that also went missing at around the same time, reportedly going to the same beach within the same hour. In these 6 months since, not a single one of them has been seen or heard from again. In fact, many people that take late-night visits to that beach, or any beach in the area, often go missing. From my research, I have concluded that, while not everyone that goes to the beach late at night goes missing, there has never once been a time where someone at the beach went missing and everyone else didn't too. As I talked to people in that area, I began to hear rumors about a sea monster that lived deep out in the ocean, coming out for late-night snacks here and there. No one had seen it, but the people that lived close to the beach all believed in it. Out of all 6 people that I interviewed, every single one of them claimed to have felt its presence at least once. One elderly lady's testimony shocked me the most. "There is indeed something out at sea," she said. "I feel it often, maybe once or twice a month, and I swear to you, it always feels like it's calling to me, asking me to join it. I don't know how to explain it, but somehow I know that it wants me, or maybe everyone, I don't know. What I do know is that once about a year ago, I fell asleep alone in my bed as I always have since my husband passed away, and then woke up in the middle of the street to a car honking at me from about 20 feet away. I had been crossing the street in the direction of the beach, and I swear to you, young man, I could smell my husband's cologne. My husband, who has been dead for over 10 years. When I was almost positive that there was a monster out there, something responsible for my wife's disappearance, I set about creating a plan to find it and kill it. Below, I will recount to you exactly what happened 2 nights ago when I went looking for it, and hopefully what happens next. I was sitting down at the beach at 7 p.m. on a Monday evening, just as my wife had been, watching the water. I tried to imagine how she was feeling. Had she just been happy, hanging out with her friends? Or had she felt like something was wrong? If so, why hadn't she listened to her gut? Maybe like the old lady I had interviewed, she felt something calling to her. Did she hear my voice, smell my cologne? I could smell her. But I just watched as the powerful waves rolled in and out, reaching further and further up the beach at each assault, like an army conquering their enemy. The sounds of heavy wind crest the lapping waves into a steady beat of rhythmic terror. Towels flew through the air as late-night partiers ran from the tide. The ocean continued to eat up more and more of the beach, pushed along by a rippling disturbance far out at sea. I stood my ground as water reached my waist. I was prepared for what was coming. A terrible beast that dwelled so deep in the ocean that it had only been seen by humanity in glimpses that were always followed shortly by death. Wind ripped through my ears so harshly that I could hardly hear the cries of horror from those caught in the water. A group of 4 people who were also at the beach, presumably for late-night drinking and a picnic. I walked towards their screams, not to save them, but because I knew that's where terror lied. The monster would surface. Frigid water enveloped me in an ice-cold grip as I made my way closer. The pain was excruciating, but it was swept away as my body reacted to the thought of something much, much worse. My muscles were tense, ready for battle. I was shaking, not with fear but with excitement. The moment was long past due, and the adrenaline was kicking in. and then I saw it. A mile out. Two gigantic, vibrant red tentacles the size of small ships. They slapped the water, and another enormous wave was created. As the wave came towards me, the beast fully emerged with such force that, even in the water, I could feel the ground shaking. It was a giant squid the size of a skyscraper. While the tentacles were red, the rest of its head and body was a dark ruby, hinting at a light purple around its large face and eyes. 3 eyes that reached the size of a human head, one at each side of its face and one right in the middle. Yet as I set my eyes on the beast, I swear I felt her, Elizabeth. Not her lips or her touch or her breath, but just her presence. For the first time in my life, I cried tears of joy. This was the comfort that I needed, the comfort that I had come searching for. I smiled and began to swim forward. This was my eternity. But then the wave hit me and let my body go limp. All of the feelings that had been flooding through me disappeared, and I was left with only the faint memory of them as I returned to the real world once more. Fighting the current, the ground, and the wind was of no use. I let the world fold me into delirium as my body was pulled underwater, deep into the ocean, hundreds of yards from land. I thought about the 4 drunk men who had already been pulled to sea, ineffectively fighting the most powerful force in the world, water. I felt a pang of guilt. They hadn't known what was to come, but I had. I should have warned them. I arose from the water for just a moment, and took a deep breath before allowing my emotions to slip away, with the corpses of those dropping deeper and deeper into the ocean, never to be seen again. I closed my eyes. I had no control over where I went. How long was I underwater? 2 minutes, 3. My lungs were screaming. I was lightheaded and my throat felt so empty. I contemplated giving into the void, opening my mouth to nature and allowing the water to fill my mouth, throat, and lungs. It was at that moment that the waves ceased. Seconds from passing out, I began to swim upward, catching glimpses of fish and other sea life that I was too distressed to fully take in. Suddenly, out of my peripheral vision, I saw a shark approaching me with an urgent hunger in its eyes, and a confidence unrivaled by anything that I had ever seen. I almost laughed as it came towards me. You're telling me, I thought, that I came here hunting the most terrifying demon the world has to offer, and I'm going to die to a shark. No. I needed air. I swam up and I could see it coming for me. It was so close. I pulled my head above the water and took a quick gasp of air. As it approached biting distance and lunged itself towards me, I pulled out the knife sheathed in my boot and pushed myself even deeper down, narrowly escaping a fatal attack. It turned itself around for a second attempt, and I stood still, positioning myself just above its mouth. When it attacked the second time, I pushed myself upwards and found myself above the shark. Before it could get its mouth around me, I mounted it. It writhed wildly, attempting to shake me from its body, but I held on tightly with my legs and then used both hands to reach over its head and stab into its left eye. I pulled out the knife and stabbed the right eye, before scraping the blade across its gills. The sudden burst of energy caused my vision to float in darkness, and for just a moment, I was on the verge of passing out. I shook my head, fighting the darkness as the shark swam away, its own blood trailing behind it. Once I resurfaced and I got my bearings, I picked a direction and I began swimming. I knew the sea monster well. It would come for me soon. I no longer had to seek it out. In the distance, waves began to pick up speed. As the source of the disturbance drew closer, I began to bob up and down on the water. My senses left me. I wasn't unconscious, but it was like I was in a semi-sleep. I felt nothing and I heard nothing. If I moved, I could bring it all back. But if I stayed still with my eyes closed and let the salt water keep me in sensory deprivation, The world was gone from me for a time. Gabe! Gabe! Are you alive? I opened my eyes. Looming over me, a savior in the sea, was a huge wooden ship. On it was my best friend Ben leaning over the railing and smiling at me. I laughed uncontrollably until I began to cough. I'm alive, pull me in. Ben threw down a buoy attached to a rope and pulled me up. Come on, man, he said, clasping each of my shoulders with a hand. You actually did it. I nodded. Water. Of course. He handed me a water bottle. Drink up, kid, you've earned it. I thought I was going to be fishing for chunks of you. I chugged until there was none left. Easy, buddy, he said, patting me on the back and laughing. I was worried about you. I was worried about you too. That thing could have sunk a ship from a mile away. Can't say I didn't feel it. I listened to your instructions though. We were camping out about 3 miles west until the heavy waves stopped, and then we came looking for you. I thought you'd be screaming for me. Didn't expect to find you taking a nap in the middle of the ocean. I got bored. I shrugged, smiling. I was happy to see him again. We had met a few days before to go over the plan, and while I trusted Ben with my life, he had come to my aid in more than a couple of bar fights over the years. He always had a rather carefree approach to life. He didn't really seem to care whether or not he died as long as he had had fun. Why don't we go meet the rest of the crew? He asked. And then we can catch up. There's some crazy dudes, but they'll get the job done. You did the hard part. The hard part? You mean lying down as bait? Give yourself some credit. You baited out the beast and survived. If you didn't live, it wouldn't come back, and we wouldn't be able to kill it. Are you sure you're up for this? I'm practically your brother, Gabe. What this thing took from you, it took from me too. We can't bring her back, but we will get revenge. I know you would do the same for me. I nodded. I would. And you're sure that we can kill it? Of course. We laughed and began walking down the stairs into the cabin. As we went down the passageway, I did duck so I wasn't hitting the ceiling. Ben, however, being about 3 inches shorter than me, didn't seem to notice. There was a speck of light at the bottom coming from where the entrance to the ship's cabin was. This space was only slightly less dark than the stairs. There were 2 small candles held in the middle of the room, by what looked like a worn gray vanity torn out of a bathroom and nailed into the ground. The ground was wooded and rough, with nails poking out at odd places. I made a mental note not to get out of bed without shoes on. There were 2 beds on each side of the room, all but one accompanied by a blanket, a pillow, and a respected man. This is Abel, Ben said, motioning towards a guy who was openly flipping through a magazine on the left side of the room. Aye, Abel said, barely glancing at me as he flipped the page. And here's Michael and his brother Noah. Ben pointed at each of them in turn as he spoke. They were sitting on their beds on the other side of the room, Michael smoking a cigarette, while Noah shuffled cards between his hands. Michael grunted in acknowledgement, and Noah gave me a shy half smile, and then looked back down at his cards. Ben smiled at me. They're not too talkative, but they're good enough lads. I didn't mind. I was on the ship to do one thing: kill the beast that had taken my wife, and free the world from its terrors. And where will I be sleeping? You'll take my bed, Ben replied, pointing at the empty cot next to Abel. This time, I scanned him over completely. He was a behemoth of a man, near 7 feet tall and close to 400 pounds. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with a gray beard and a bald head. His face was scarred from long, sunny days at sea, and his white beater and gray shorts were stained in puke. Although he was white, he was tan to a degree that made him look closer to Hispanic. He noticed me looking at him, and he smiled. He was missing at least half of his teeth, including his front 2. The ones that he did have were black and rotting. You want to use my mag, do you, laddie? He chuckled, standing up from the bed and stretching, and then letting out a loud fart. I didn't respond. Instead, I brought my attention to the other half of the room, drawing a comparison between Abel and the brothers. They seemed normal enough, each wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Michael was clearly older, roughly 25 but appeared to be already balding. Noah, on the other hand, had a full head of hair and didn't look a day over 17. He looked away as he noticed me staring at him. Overall, I thought, they look at least somewhat sanitized. I concluded that I drew the short end of the stick. "Where will you be sleeping?" I asked Ben. "Oh, I don't mind the floor." I tried to argue, but it was pretty lackluster. After what I had been through, I probably deserved the bed. Besides, I got the feeling that Ben didn't want to sleep anywhere near Abel again. "Why don't we go up to the top deck and talk, huh?" I asked. We should probably have someone scouting anyway. Ben nodded and we ascended the stairs. I walked to the railing of the ship and looked out at the horizon. The sun was red, but the water was as blue as ever. A sudden gust of wind cooled us, and I sighed. "I miss her," I said, leaning my arms against the railing. "I know." I'd been angry every day since it took her. But the worst part is that I have no right to be mad. That thing is doing just what it was put onto this earth to do. It doesn't know how to do anything else. It's like a bear or a lion. It just wants to eat. Ben placed a hand on my back and I continued. "I find it very funny that I've spent the last 6 months of my life tracking this thing and creating a plan to kill it. And now that we found it, it all comes down to a fight that in all reality, we shouldn't win. Who are we to kill God's greatest creation? To be honest, I wasn't even completely sure it existed until I saw it today. And it's a heck of a lot bigger than I could have ever thought. We're in this together." "Right we are," I said, "because it's coming right now. It must have sensed our intentions." Ben looked at me with his eyes wide open, and his mouth taking on an O shape. "I thought you said it was going to be a few days." I was wrong. Gather the crew. Prepare for war. Ben flew down the stairs, screaming for his men to gather their weapons and to come on up. I did nothing, standing idly as I watched and I waited. Truth be told, I wasn't sure that we could complete the task, but I felt like it was my duty to try. I wondered if bringing 4 innocent men into this was worth it. None of them had seen it. They truly didn't know what was coming. Ben came back to the deck. "Freaking guys, they're taking their time getting up here. They don't understand what's coming. I'm not even sure if they believe it's real." "I'm not sure you know what's coming either." Ben sighed. "I suppose not, eh?" "It's not too late. It only wants me. I can jump off the ship, and if you're lucky, I'll survive long enough for you to get out of here." I knew he wouldn't agree, but I had to offer. Ben laughed. "I'm not doing this for you, brother. I'm doing this for myself. For what else do I have to live for?" I nodded, knowing that nothing I could say would convince him of how dangerous this was. I knew that even if we did succeed, this would not be a day that he remembered fondly. Michael and Noah were the first to come up the stairs. They both held rifles in their hands. I nodded at them. "You ready, men?" Michael nodded at me and smiled, his head raised high. He positioned his gun on his shoulder like a soldier preparing for war. Noah, however, put the gun on the floor and held his stomach with both hands. He looked like he was about to be sick. I raised an eyebrow at him and he said, "First time at sea, sir. Honestly, I just can't wait to get back on land." "Well, you better grow some sea legs fast," I said, "or you won't be getting home at all." I narrowed my eyebrows and scowled at him. Actually, I'm beginning to think that it's a likely possibility. Grow some balls. Abel sauntered up the stairs next, holding a beer in one hand and a pistol in the other. He glanced at me and then burped. "Aye, you ready to kill a monster?" He laid on the floor, patting his beer belly with his gun hand. Wake me up when she shows. I stepped forward, imagining in my head what it would be like to pull the gun from his hand and pistol whip him with it. Ben sensed the tension and stepped in front of me, putting a hand on my shoulder. I'll talk to him. I pulled back from his touch. This is your crew? I snapped. I've had a long day and I've almost died in more ways than these illiterate guys can count. What did you do, pick them up off the streets? Offer them each a bottle of beer for their time? I thought I was the one with the death wish. You piece of crap, we might as well. Before I could finish, a deafening splash was heard in the distance, like a very large object was dropped from a very great height into the water. It echoed through the ocean, like someone screaming in a cave. As the waves around us picked up in pace and size, wetting the deck, a sudden wind ran through me, so strong that it almost knocked me to the ground. Give me a weapon, I told Ben. Something I can shoot long range. Will that stop it? No, but maybe it'll annoy it enough so it won't want to get any closer, yet. He swallowed hard, and then nodded and ran down the stairs. I attempted to take control of the group. Listen, men, I said, throwing my voice up a notch so that it carried through the wind. You guys don't know what's coming for her. I was interrupted by Abel's chuckles as he shot a bullet absent-mindedly through the air. I carried on, attempting to ignore him. You don't know what's coming for us. A description of what this beast is won't do you any good. We have to strike hard and fast. If it gets too close, we're all dead. The wind picked up faster, buzzing through my ears as if I was being swarmed by 100 flies. The storm's a brewing, Abel said. I shook my head. You idiot. Harding quick like a strike of lightning, I first saw the monster miles off on the horizon, and then it was only 2 miles away, and then a half a mile. And it stopped, completely still, staring straight into me. Its huge eyeballs seemed to stretch across its entire face. They appeared to be human. Blue, kind and wise, like my wife's. My dead wife, who had gone missing in this very area 3 years prior, while I was at sea with the Navy, fighting for my country, but not my girl. Those were her eyes, just larger. I was sure of it. As I stared into them, I couldn't help but remember everything about her. My Elizabeth. Her voice, the perfect softness and pitch to bring me up from any bad mood. The way she would hold my hand so tight as if her life depended on it. I remembered holding her hand in a movie theater, kissing her under the stars, falling asleep with her body against mine. And then there were gunshots, as Michael and Noah began to unload the rifles into the beast. And then Ben was running up the cabin stairs and throwing a gun my way while at the same time loading his. I shook my head hard, regaining my composure, and then screamed loud enough to be heard over the water, gunshots, and wind. Hit it with all you got, men. This is war, don't let up. Our bullets pelted the monster for minutes on end as it stayed about 200 yards out, using its massive form and strength to send enormous wave after wave at us. Our ship was big and strong, but more than once a wave knocked me over, and I was left with about a gallon of salt water in my mouth. The beast didn't seem to be in any pain, but simply trying to decide whether or not we were worth pursuing any further. It swayed side to side, occasionally moving backward and then forward again. Noah was balled up on the floor, crying, with his rifle on the floor as well. However, Ben, Michael, and I were working as a well-oiled machine, firing together and taking turns reloading, as we did our all to keep the monster at bay. When I had to reload the second time, I traded my gun out for Noah's and ordered him to reload it. Abel was nowhere to be seen, presumably crying in the cabin like the little baby that he is. By the time that I had to reload again, I looked over to see Noah had joined in once more, pelting the beast with as many bullets as he could manage. He looked over at me and screamed, "I'm sorry," were the words that I had read off his lips. As I finished reloading, I began firing again. The monster submerged itself in the water, until we could no longer even make out a shadow of it. "Oh no," Michael screamed. "Is it going to capsize us?" Maybe, I said, dropping my gun to the floor. If it is, we're done. No, Ben said. It didn't seem like it wanted to hurt us. Did you see the size of that thing? And our bullets weren't exactly scaring it. If it wanted us dead, we would be dead. Noah sniffed harshly and wiped the tears from his eyes. Are you insane? Did you see the size of those waves? Why do that if... I interjected. No, Ben's right. I'm not going to begin to hypothesize on what its motives are, but you better believe that it's a hell of a lot stronger than it showed us today. Maybe it was playing with its food, or maybe it needs us for something. Like I said, I don't know. But the important thing is that we're alive, and I intend to keep it that way. Ben, come with me. We walked down into the cabin and found Abel laying in his bed, flipping through his magazine as calm as ever. He winked at me. I spit in his direction. Go upstairs with the rest of the crew. I can't stand to even look at you, coward. He stood up and laughed, and then slapped my back roughly, but followed my orders nonetheless. When he closed the cabin doors behind him, Ben and I sat down on my bed. This is bad, I admitted. I saw the way you were looking at the thing when I got up there. I heard you say her name too. Yeah, it had her eyes, man. I'm telling you, it stole them. And I think I know why it didn't kill us. He didn't respond, so I continued. I don't know why, but I'm beginning to think that it wants me to go willingly. I wasn't even completely sure that's what killed Elizabeth until today, but its very essence just radiates her. Either way, we're here to take it out, he whispered, as if he were scared the monster might hear him. I nodded and then turned around and walked back up the stairs. I heard Ben following behind me. It was nearing nighttime, and as the moon rose and the first stars came into view, I saw Noah and Michael standing against the railing with their heads together, staring out at the sea. Abel was sitting down cross-legged on the other side of the ship. All of you, go rest up, I said. Us four are going to take turns as lookout while Ben captains the ship. 4-hour shifts. I'll start. When you're on lookout, pay close attention. It could come back in an hour, or it could come back in a week. It will come back though, and we aren't going back to land until it does. In the next few days, I spent most of my time sleeping, writing, and aimlessly staring out at the sea. Ben and I started teaching Michael and Noah yoga to keep us all active and entertained. They actually seemed to enjoy it, and I often found them practicing poses on their own. Abel, however, declined our invitation for yoga, saying that we were all a bunch of babies. I would rather jump off the ship than do yoga with you bunch of weirdos. I'll cut him some slack, seeing that we had been dry of alcohol for almost a full day, and he was probably going through withdrawals. Ben and I decided that it would be good to keep the ship relatively clean, if only for our own sanity. So as to not stir any tides in the ship, we didn't dish out chores. We handled everything ourselves. We liked the routine. One day around noon, Ben and I were keeping ourselves busy by cleaning the top deck when Noah came up and asked us if we needed any help. To be honest, Ben replied, I'm not too sure this deck really needs cleaning all that bad. Me and Gabe just kinda need something to keep us busy, or we're gonna start losing it. You're welcome to join us if you would like though. Noah walked closer to it and then glanced backward. Speaking of losing it, Abel has been a little off the past couple days. I mean more than usual. Have you noticed he's been mumbling to himself? I nodded. I had noticed. Yeah, well, he's also been messing with me quite a bit. Earlier on when I was alone with him, he told me to drop and give him 20 or he was going to throw me overboard. Did you? Ben asked. Yeah, Noah said, his face turning red as he rubbed the back of his head with his hand. Anyway, that's not all. Earlier well, I hate to be a snitch, but... No, I interjected. Telling us is the right thing to do. I need to know so I can keep an eye on him. I'm not letting anyone on the ship get hurt. What else did he do? Well, he's just been teasing me a lot. Slapping my butt, you know. like baseball players do, flicking me in the back of the head as I walked by. He stole my deck of cards too. I know I sound like a kid complaining to the principal about being bullied, but well, I just wish we could all be on the same team. The beginning of that last sentence, the part about him sounding like a kid, didn't sit well with me. In all reality, Noah was a kid. It hadn't truly sunk into me until then. He shouldn't have been out there with us, risking his life for a mission that he had no stake in. He should have been in school, playing sports, video games, or chasing a girl. "I'll make sure that he doesn't mess with you anymore," Ben said. "Next time he does, let me know." I smiled, remembering all the times that Ben had come to my aid back in the day. When he said that he was there for you, he meant it. Once way back when we were still in school, I had gotten jumped by 4 guys after football practice because I'd been talking to one of their girlfriends. Ben saw it go down and he jumped in. We had gotten our butts kicked in, and when I asked him what he was thinking jumping in like that, he had said, "Well, I figured you might not get hurt as bad if they had 2 punching bags instead of 1. I sat down, leaning myself against the ship's railing. I motioned for Noah and Ben to join me, and they sat on either side of me. "So Noah, what's your story? Why are you and your brother on this ship?" Noah smiled faintly. "I'm not too sure, to be honest. Our parents were meth addicts. They used to toss me around a lot. Michael said that they weren't so bad when he was little, but I don't know." He shrugged his shoulders and he stood up, staring off into the distance. He tried to protect me the best that he could, but even at 18, he was working 2 jobs. He couldn't always be there, but he practically raised me on his own. Anyway, one day when I was 12, he told me that we were leaving. And wow, we've been gone ever since. I think that was 5 years ago. Since then, we've traveled around in his car doing odd jobs here and there. Never stayed in one place for more than a few months. I guess that's how we ended up here. Ben picked us up right off the streets, taught us what we needed to know. If we finish this job, it'll be the best pay that we've ever had. And we will finish this job. I know I seemed scared the other day, but that's not me. It won't be me. Not anymore. Noah went down and fetched Michael from the cabin, and they took turns telling us stories for the rest of the night. Their travels around the country, times that they had to sleep under bridges or on park benches. They had once been caught trying to sell fake tickets to a Yankees game, and they had to run from the cops. A chase that ended when Michael got hit by a taxi. He tried to run across the street and scale over the hood like in the movies, but instead, he was walking with a limp for a month. They had got off with a warning, and by the next day, they were in Boston pulling the same scam at the Red Sox games. As Noah finished the story, Michael laughed and put his hands up. Hey, we're strictly legal now, I swear." It was the first time that I'd seen him smile. We stayed up until sunrise talking like that, and it wasn't until 3 in the morning that they all went to bed. I, however, was on lookout when morning came. When I saw the bleeding red sky, I frowned, and I found myself remembering an old saying of my grandmother's. "Red sky in morning, sailor take warning." Boredom, I believe, is one of the most dangerous things in the world. It's like a starving lion inside of you, searching for any source of food, any way to make itself feel full again. Boredom drives people mad. It causes them to do terrible things for no reason, but to amuse themselves. What Abel did on my 3rd night on the ship was exactly what I was trying to prevent with all of the chores and yoga and conversation that he chose not to partake in. It was dinner time, and Ben had served us all the best meal that we had had since I had come aboard. Cold beans and crackers. I was amidst lathering down yet another cracker when Abel, who had apparently already finished his meal, stood up from his bed and belched before asking, "Which one of you wants to fight?" I stood up with the intention of stopping any potential fight from taking place, but Abel, however, mistook my action for an invitation. He stepped towards me and smiled. He had about 150 pounds and half a foot on me, but while his body was soft and fat from years of laying in bed and gorging on fast food, mine was lean and hard. And from my time in the Navy, I knew how to fight. "You think you're so tough, don't ya?" he asked. "Well, let's see how tough you are when you're begging me not to snap your neck." I looked around for help. I wasn't sure if I would be able to defend myself against a man of that size. Ben was up on top on lookout, so that left Noah and Michael. I looked at them and they both looked away. Crap. I took a step back, weighing my options. I had enough time to reach for my knife, but did I really want this to escalate to that? I could charge him, but he even had the faintest clue on how to fight. He would take me to the ground. I had no hope of wrestling with a man that size. Before I could make a decision, he reached me and attempted to punch me in the face. I ducked under it and I punched him in the nose. He threw his head backward and blood sprayed upwards, almost hitting the ceiling and then falling down, some of it landing on my head. I laughed. How much of that is booze? With quickness that I didn't think could be attributed to such a big man, he grabbed both of my arms with his hands and sidestepped behind me, holding me in place. I kicked and squirmed, but it was of no use. He was too strong. He pushed me against the back wall, and I felt his hot breath on my neck as he whispered, "Why shouldn't I kill you right now?" I heard footsteps behind me, and then Noah was screaming in rage as he threw himself at Abel from behind. Abel almost fell, but quickly regained his balance as he turned and pushed Noah in the chest with both hands. Noah flew back several feet, landing onto my bed. I, however, took the opportunity to tackle Abel to the ground. Before I could do anything else, the ship took a violent turn and then another, and I was surfing Abel as we slid across the room. Jumping to my feet, I turned and I ran up the cabin stairs before Abel could even react. I looked out into the water and saw what appeared to be a water tornado, whirling with so much force that our ship was being sucked toward it as the water was pulled down below it. "Water spout!" Ben yelled as he attempted to steer the ship away from them. A large funnel shape of water and air was chasing us through, appearing to come straight from the heavens with the sole intention of destroying our ship. We were pulled towards it, and then pushed away, and at each shaking of the ship, we were coming closer and closer to being flipped over, and left to die at sea. At one specific turbulence, I was tossed across the ship, barely catching myself on the railings. When I looked out at the sea, I was facing the beast. The monster had somehow sent those things after us. As what? As a warning? To mock us? To show us how easily it could kill us? After I saw it, the water spots appeared to go back into the sky, as if they were never there. The monster used its two red tentacles to taunt me with a come hither motion. This time, its eyes were brown.
"Me and my brother are gonna die."
The voice started off as Noah's, and then switched to Michael's slightly deeper southern drawl as the creature said the last two words. It stretched the last word out for several seconds, and by the end, it appeared to be a different voice altogether. It sounded like a demon, high-pitched and seeming to go on forever. The word was reverberating against itself. I could hear the I sound that it had just made, while it was making another. Like a chorus of monsters from hell were all working together to produce this sound. And then Michael came barreling up the stairs with Noah chasing him from behind, trying to grab at his older brother. Michael absent-mindedly pushed his sibling back with one arm, and Noah was sent careening down the stairs. "Mama! Mama!" Michael screamed. "Mama, what happened?" As he reached the edge of the boat, he screamed, "Mom, I'm coming!" And then he put his hands out, as if preparing to jump off the ship and into the monster's waiting embrace. I was too far away to do anything but watch. I covered my mouth with my hands. "No," I whispered. "No." But at the last instant, Ben came from the outer edge of my vision and tackled Michael to the floor. His chin hit the ground with a loud pop and a crunch, and he groaned in pain. I looked back at the beast, which was now less than 50 yards away from us. It was standing still, watching, completely mesmerized by what was happening. It wasn't concerned with anything else. It wasn't scared of our guns, of our intention to kill it. It hadn't come for a battle. It had come for a show. Is it really a fight if only one side gets any real hits in? In the time that I was lost in my thoughts, I missed what happened only a few feet away from me. For that, I will never forgive myself. I can't help but wonder if maybe this story would have turned out differently if I had only just paid attention to my crew, to my best friend for one more second. After being tackled to the ground, Michael was in a great deal of pain. He had most certainly dislocated his jaw, and he was bleeding on the floor from where he had bitten his own tongue. He acted calmly though, and when I turned around, he had silently pulled out his gun and shot my best friend in the head. I wasn't even looking at them until the gun went off, and by the time that I turned around, Michael was already swimming towards the monster as he cried out in joy. I pulled my pistol out from my waistband and started shooting at the monster as I sobbed and screamed incomprehensible words of anger. I hadn't gotten more than 3 shots off when I heard Noah, screaming just as loudly as I was, begin shooting alongside me. He had 2 assault rifles, one in each hand, and he was shooting them akimbo style, his face a portrait of maniacal hate. I didn't know how much he had seen, but he knew that his brother was gone, and I knew that he would never be the same. When Noah had to reload his guns, he tossed one of them to me and we reloaded simultaneously as the beast came towards us. I had accepted death, and I believe that Noah had too. We had lost everything important to us, but God help us if we weren't going to give that thing hell before it took our lives too. So, there we were, shooting as it drew closer. It was clear that our bullets were causing it a little pain, but it was like throwing pebbles at a mountain lion. Our bullets were more annoying than anything else. And that was when Abel came up with his pistol in hand, though he didn't fire alongside us. "This is it, boys," he yelled over the rapid-fire booms of our guns. "Put your hands up." I hated him since the moment that I met him. But it wasn't until I saw him holding Noah from behind with his gun pressed against Noah's temple that I knew that he was going to kill him. Now Abel spoke to me directly. "Put your gun down, or I will kill him." "Are you insane?" I asked. "It's going to kill us if we don't keep fighting." Abel laughed. "You don't think it could have killed us already, you moron? Now throw your gun into the water, or I will kill him." I shook my head, and I pointed my own weapon directly at Abel's head. "You kill him, you die." Abel shielded his own body with Noah's and then pointed his gun down and shot Noah in the foot. He let Noah howl in pain and try to yank himself free before he continued. "I can wait." "Your call," Abel continued, pointing his gun at me. I threw my gun into the ocean. "Now," Abel said, kicking Noah's gun over to me. "Throw this out." I did as he said. "I worship you," Abel called out to the sea, where the monster could be seen slowly backing away watching. "Don't leave me. I brought you 2 sacrifices. Take them." He hoisted Noah up over his head, and then he threw him off of the ship. Before Noah could even hit the water, I had removed my knife from my boot and was raising at Abel. He turned, his arms up and ready to defend himself, but I saw his blind spot and I went for it. He covered his lower abdomen with both hands after I plunged my knife into him and pulled it back out, but he hadn't reacted at all while I was doing it. I was too fast. Ben used to joke that no one ever saw my knife, because I was so fast that anyone I pulled it on was dead before they knew what was happening. Until the beast, I had solid met a problem that my knife couldn't solve. In its absence, the rule applied once more. Abel fell to the ground and I walked up to him. While I did feel a little sick watching him squirm and beg for his life, I never had a problem killing someone who deserved to die. I looked him in the eyes as I finished him off. He deserved that much. Without a second glance, I ran and grabbed the very buoy that Ben had used to pull me up, tied it to the same very rope, and threw it down for Noah. His blood was spreading out around him, like seasoning in a soup. I had to get him back on the ship before the blood loss was too much. "Noah!" I screamed. "Noah, are you alright? Grab the buoy."
I'm here.
His voice was raspy, dry, and weak. I just strained to hear it. He had no strength left to climb, so it was up to me to pull him all the way up. Noah clung onto the buoy and I began to reel him in slowly, praying that I had tied the knot tight enough. My arms, legs, and back were burning, but I couldn't let him go. He had to survive. "You're halfway here," I screamed. "You have to help me. Start climbing up the rope." I didn't have much strength left. If he didn't help me, I was going to drop him, and he might never get back up. He grunted and followed my orders, wrapping his legs around the rope and using his arms to slowly pull himself upward. All they could do now was keep the rope taut while he ascended. "You can do it, keep going." He said nothing. His face and arms were turning red as every muscle in his body strained. Every time he pulled himself upward, he let out a cry of pain, and when he was just below eye level, I saw that he was sobbing. "Okay," I screamed. "Stop, hold yourself still, and then reach your right hand to mine." I put both of my arms down towards him. "When I've got you, let go of the rope and grab me with your left hand, and then I'll pull you up." He nodded, letting out an animalistic sound of pain. His face was swelling, the veins pulsating, and he was now an even darker shade of red, like a crimson balloon getting ready to pop. "Okay, ready? Go!" I grabbed his right hand, and then we paused for just a moment, making eye contact. I nodded, what I hoped was a reassuring gesture, and then he screamed with all of his might and flung himself from the rope. I caught his left hand in mine and then started to slowly walk my legs backward until I couldn't even see him anymore, praying for God to give me enough strength to finish the job. When I saw his hands latch onto the wooden railing, I dropped the rope and I ran to him, and then I helped him pull himself up onto the deck. In the end, we were both lying on our sides, cursing at each breath. It wasn't pretty, but we got the job done. My victory was short-lived though, as Noah's blood was already beginning to pull up around him, and the consciousness was starting to drain from his eyes. "Stay with me," I said as I slapped him softly on the cheek. "I'll be right back." I ran into the cabin and dug through our supplies until I found the first aid kit, and then I ran back up and I took Noah's shoe off, exposing the wound. If he had been wearing boots, I might have been able to say that he got lucky. However, he was wearing cheap tennis shoes that did very little to protect him from the bullet. He wasn't wearing socks, which made things a lot less complicated. The wound was sickening to look at. Blood trickled at a slow and steady rate, and the foot was swollen to what appeared to be nearly double its normal size. If his shoe hadn't been a size too big, I probably wouldn't have been able to get it off without a knife or scissors. I could see the bullet sticking out halfway in his foot. It looked like something was growing from inside of him. "You're gonna be alright," I said. "But thanks to that drunk over there." I motioned to Abel's lifeless body sitting against the railing about 20 feet from us. "We don't have any alcohol, so you're just gonna have to deal with the pain sober." "Sure," he whispered as he laid his head back down on the ground, fighting back tears. I put a sterilized glove on each hand, grabbed the tweezers, and removed the bullet. Luckily, it wasn't too difficult, and although Noah grunted in pain a couple times, he didn't make much fuss. His eyes were dull and lifeless, as if now he was in a world without his older brother. Nothing else was worth caring about. I cleaned the wound with rubbing alcohol. At this, Noah made a sound deep in his throat and closed his eyes, but made no complaint. "Sorry," I said. "I'm not a doctor." Finally, I encased his wound in the entire foot with gauze, covered it all with duct tape, and then, holding his foot with one hand, I linked the belt around my other hand in his foot, tightening the belt around the wound by pulling the end of it with my mouth. "That's all I can do," I said. "Now we hope for the best. I'll go get you something to eat. And then I guess I'll try to get you back on land into a real doctor. I think we scared that thing off for now. I'll come back to kill it on my own sometime, or die trying." Noah was still lying flat on the ground with his eyes closed, but his voice was as strong as it was before he got shot, maybe stronger. For once, he spoke with true confidence. You idiot. Do you really think that we're getting out of here? Have you not figured that out yet? After everything that's happened, that thing hasn't killed a single one of us. Not directly anyway. It wants us to choose to join it, or go insane and kill each other. Did the water spouts really hurt us? Has anything it's done ever directly hurt anyone? No, it's a freaking illusionist. But it could kill us if it wanted. It's playing with us. It's bored out here. We're a game, we're a show. We aren't a fight. We were dead the second that we stepped on the ship. This thing has no purpose. It simply exists. It's a freak of nature. It was God's biggest mistake. It was never supposed to be here, and we were never supposed to find it. It's bored on this earth because it's greater than us. It's lonely. And we're its pets. Its prisoners. You have been for months ever since your wife died, and you still don't realize it. It's gonna keep playing with us until we surrender ourselves to it, or until we die. We are never leaving this ocean, and none of our bodies will ever be found. You don't know what you're saying, I said. It backed away because we were gonna kill it. Can't you see it's injured? I can kill it, but I'm not letting anyone else die out here. I'm bringing you back to land first, getting you to a real doctor. No! Noah opened his eyes and sat up quickly, as if jostled from sleep by a nightmare. He looked me in the eyes. Do you think that I even want to live anymore? My brother is gone, and I'm not even sad because I know I'll be joining him soon. I can't believe it took me this long to realize it. There was a fire in his eyes that I had never seen before. The boy that used to be so weak, timid, and eager to please was now at the point in his life that no one should have to enter so young. The point where he just didn't care anymore. Not about his past traumas, not about his own life, and definitely not about anyone else's. He looked into the void and the void had looked right back, and then taken the last thing that he truly cared about. As far as he was concerned, this was the Grim Reaper's boat, and we were sailing right into hell. I turned away from him and busied myself with dumping Abel's body into the ocean. It took every ounce of strength that I had, but it was a lot easier to manage when he wasn't breathing. I mopped up his blood and then turned to the scene of my best friend only a few yards away. Ben, I whispered, I'm so sorry. He was lying face down on the floor. His blood had created a pool all around him. Just in front of his head there were a few specks of little white stuff, about the size of peanuts. I assumed that it was brain matter. It was so surreal. He had been with me since I was a small child. Whenever I needed him, he was there, and he was the only reason that I hadn't offed myself when I lost Elizabeth. How could there be a world without him? It was like imagining life without air or water or food. It simply didn't compute. For a moment, I sincerely felt that if I were to clean him up and bandage his wounds, he would just poof, come back to life. But no, he was gone. His heart was no longer beating, and I could feel the stickiness of his blood on my palm as I caressed his cheek. How unfair could the world be? I didn't get to say goodbye, and he didn't get the movie star ending that he deserved. He just got shot, and in the blink of an eye, poof, no more Ben. I quietly thanked him for everything that he had done for me, and then I told myself that it was time to move on. Chances are Noah was right. I would be joining him soon enough. I hoisted Ben over my shoulder, walked him to the side of the ship, and then said the last two words that I would ever say to him. Goodbye, brother. Then I helped Noah downstairs, fed him some dinner, and I went to bed. The next 24 hours on the ship were relatively easy. I spent the day preparing for battle and nursing Noah. There was a certain dullness in his eyes that made me uneasy. He was content just to lay in bed all day. He ate and drank when I told him to, and he offered no objections when I cleaned and rebandaged his wound. Other than Ben, Noah was the person on the ship that I cared about the most. But in the hours after Ben and Michael were killed, I couldn't help but feel that I was alone. Or at least my only company was a breathing corpse, waiting for nature to catch up with him. I set our ship in a direction that I hoped would lead to land within a day or two, but I knew that I was going to meet the monster one more time, and I planned to kill it, even if it meant sacrificing both Noah's life and my own. Call it selfish, but I don't think Noah cared. That night, when I tried to go to sleep, every time I closed my eyes, I had the unnerving feeling that someone was watching me, and when I opened them, and I looked across the room at Noah, he was staring straight at me. I stared back and he didn't look away or even blink. We stayed like that for some time, and I couldn't help but think back to my very first day on the ship. Back then, Noah had been more or less just a normal kid who had gotten sucked into something way out of his pay grade. He used to look away every time I tried to make eye contact with him, and now it was like he was challenging me. But to what? I knew I wasn't going to sleep anytime soon, regardless of what Noah was doing, so I got up from bed and prepared for war. After the stunt that Abel had pulled, I now had only 2 rifles and a pistol left, and our ammo supply was very, very depleted. I brought the last of our weapons and ammo up to the top of the ship, and fully loaded the guns. When it came back, I would be ready. This time, one of us was dying. I didn't care if I had to jump off that ship and chase it down on my own. There was only going to be one last battle, win or lose. When I came back to the cabin, Noah's eyes were closed, but I kneeled down in front of him. After a moment, his eyes opened. I got the impression that he had never been asleep. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He deserved an apology. His brother was dead and he was most likely following shortly behind. All because of me. He laughed quietly. It was forced, devoid of emotion. "I can't blame you. You were under its spell, just as I am now. The only difference is, I realize it and you don't." He smiled. "I think I'll be joining Michael soon. I miss him." He wiped a tear from his eyes. "I can't wait to be with him again." I nodded. "I think he's waiting for you. But first, let's avenge him." Noah closed his eyes and turned away from me, signaling that the conversation was over. I followed his cue and I went to my own bed. Although sleep didn't come easily. I thought about life and death. Mostly, I thought about Ben, and I thought about Elizabeth. And I thought about the kids that we never had. I remembered good times, bad times, and all the times I thought about ending it all. After Elizabeth died, I had spent so many hours with my pistol up against my own temple. But the one thing that kept me going was what I didn't know. How had she died? Was she even dead? She had gone missing in the ocean. Rumors about the monster were there, but they were just whispers in the wind. I did my research, and when I realized that it was true, I had only one more reason to live. Revenge. Ben had helped me until the very end, and then died for it. Whether I kill it or not, I thought I'll be dead soon enough. And then I saw her, Elizabeth, standing above my bed, smiling at me. "My love," she said, her voice a ghostly yet calming whisper. "Avenge me." "I will," I said, the tears already beginning to flow. "Do you still love me?" "I will always love you, my darling." She kissed me and then disappeared. And then I opened my eyes and I reached for her. It had been a dream. But why had I woken up? Something in the cabin felt different, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it. Like a mental itch I couldn't scratch, I searched the room fruitlessly until... Noah. I shot up from my bed as I realized something that filled me with a dismay even darker than what I had felt when Ben had died. Noah was gone. I jumped up from bed and I ran up the cabin stairs as I remembered what Noah had said to me the night before. "I think I'll be joining Michael soon. I miss him. I can't wait to be with him again." I hadn't realized he meant this. I didn't think that he would do it himself. I knew he was expecting his own death, but as foolish as it sounds, I never thought that he would take it himself. I reached the top deck at a full sprint, just in time to hear a splash. When I looked down into the ocean, I saw exactly what I had expected. Noah had just gotten out of bed, creeped up the stairs, then jumped into the water. This was either a suicide attempt, or he was trying to join his brother Michael with the monster. In my mind, those two things were one and the same. "Noah!" I screamed. But he was already swimming away from the ship as fast as he could with a bullet in his foot. I could see blood trailing behind him, and I thought it was very likely a shark would get to him before he had any hope of reaching the monster, though I doubted Noah cared either way. I didn't even try to save him. I probably couldn't have. But even if I did, he would just try again. At least this way, he got to go out on his own terms. So I watched as Noah got smaller and smaller in the distance, approaching his own demise, his own eternity. The sun was beginning to come up from behind the clouds, casting a glow over him like a spotlight. It was in a way beautiful, but as dawn faded away to morning, I noticed something that made me laugh so hard that I fell over. The sky was red, and the monster was being illuminated by its glow. It's coming towards me slowly as I finish writing this letter that I began working on my second night on the ship. I'm going to roll it up and leave it in this 12-liter soda bottle that I brought just for this reason. Abel, Ben, and Michael are dead. Noah will be joining them soon. But I think I'm finally going to face off with this beast just as I've wanted to since the day that I learned of its existence. I will fight it until... Wait, I think I hear Elizabeth. Ben too. They say everything's gonna be alright. They say that I was wrong. I was wrong all along. We are already in hell. I was wrong. The monster is our savior. They're living with him. I can go and be with them forever. My girl is waiting for me. I'll join them. Earlier today, I found Gabriel Fisher's soda bottle floating on the shore at the beach near my home. 2 weeks ago, my daughter went missing here. What do you make of it?